What is up guys, big welcome to our channel and we are team crushing the meta. First you might be wondering where is D-Boy and who is speaking to you guys, never seen you before. Well, I am Varian and I am one of the experts for Granblue from our team as well as James. And because we are now talking about Granblue obviously and not Spike Brothers, I want to share with you guys this video personally. And I am very excited because it is concerning the next incoming set for Granblue and the other clans listed there. We also get in this set two new decks. The first deck will be utilizing Nightcrows as the main VR of the set, and the second deck will be utilizing triple R cards and below. And the second deck is also utilizing a new mechanic. And recently Bushido revealed to us what this mechanic is and the cards that work with the mechanic, and I'm especially excited because now we know that the new cards are of the Seven Seas archetype, which is my most favorite archetype of Vanguard as a whole. Well, what is this new mechanic and what are the cards that were revealed? What do they do? Let's just jump right into that. So the new mechanic, immediately going into it, we get treasure markers. So you see treasure marker is a card as you see here. It's full of treasures, gold, all the things that a pirate want to get. So you want to get as many treasures as much as possible. So it has a couple of features. The first feature is that it's not in your main deck. So it's a card that is placed together with your Protect 1s or your tokens if you play those sort of clans. And also as a marker, it doesn't do anything. It can be placed on your circles, but it has no extra effect whatsoever. So you might be wondering, what is the point in this marker? Why do we want this? Why do we need to make a lot of these? That's because it involves a strategy with the main boss. And to understand that, I will just immediately show it to you guys the main boss for this mechanic, this deck, and the boss of Seven Seas, which is Lord of the Seven Seas, Nightmist. And he is a grade 3 with a protect marker, 12k base, as any grade 3 in non-force clans usually. It has two skills. So the first skill is auto on Vanguard circle and rearguard circle. When its attack hits, choose one of your Vanguard circle or rearguard circle without any marker, well, treasure markers, and put a treasure marker. So immediately what you can understand from here is that you cannot stack treasure markers because the effect only gives you treasure markers to a circle without the treasure marker yet. So you can only have a maximum of 6 markers because Granblue cannot make XL circles. Also, immediately I would like to say that the first skill is exactly the same and available for all the Seven Seas card revealed so far. So for now, this is your only way to generate markers, which is to hit something, whatever it is, a Vanguard or a rearguard, and then you can make treasure markers. So in a way, this gives you some sort of pressure early game, because as I said, all the Seven Seas have this effect, because every hit you make will be one treasure marker. And then your opponent will then have to think about, do they want to give you that marker as an advantage, or do they want to lose guard value? So that is a very interesting way and gives a dilemma for your opponent. Now, why do we even do this? As I said, the marker doesn't do anything. That's because of the Nightmist's second ability, which is continuous on V, which he gets all new effects depending on the number of markers you have, treasure markers. So if you have one or more treasure marker, the first one effect that he will get is all of your rear guards with 7 Cs in their card names can attack and intercept from the back row. Now, this is very good because it turns all of your circles suddenly into an attacking lane. If you have your grade 1s on the back row, it can attack. If you have grade 2s on the back row, it can attack. So you can make a maximum of 6 attacks. So in an offensive way, you can really make multi-attacking in Granblue, which is not available consistently yet in standard format. So I really like this effect, and the defensive side of it is that all your units can now intercept on the back row. So that means if you place grade 2s on your back row, it can still intercept even though it's not in the front row. It's important to keep in mind, however, that it doesn't give the intercept ability. So if you put a grade 1 as you would normally do in your back row, it cannot intercept because it doesn't have the intercept ability. So really, in the whole big picture, you want to put as many grade 2s in your back row as possible, because then you would not lose shield value, they are well protected, and you can still guard and attack with it. But of course, you don't have a lot of power, and that's where the third or more marker skill comes in. Because if you have 3 or more treasure marker, during your turn, all of your units with 7 Seas in their card names get power plus 5000. So this suddenly changes all of your units into possibly attacking the Vanguard and Force Vanguards as well, because the typical grade 1 8k attacker will be a 13k attacker, and that will hit Force Vanguards, that will hit the rear guards as well. So this will make sure that all of your 6 attacks can hit something, and especially can hit the Vanguard. In a way, this is not a huge boost, but it is essentially a 30,000 boost for your whole field, and make sure that all of your attacks can be lethal, and especially if they are at 5 damage. If they want to take the damage, then they have to consider if they check a defensive trigger, and if they don't, then you just keep your pressure all the time. And this is one of the main ways for your deck, or this deck, to make generate pressure without Skull Dragons left, right, and center anymore. Now, if you have a 6 or more, so if you have a full field full of treasure marker, all of Nightmist gets a new effect, which is auto at Vanguard circle at the end of the battle that it attack, span all of your rear guards with 7 Seas in their card name. So you had 6 attacks, now you can have 5 more attacks, because you can attack with your 5 rear guards, your Vanguard swings, check Twin Drive, and then put those in your rear guards and restand all of your rear guards again. So this makes you possible to just make 11 attacks out of nowhere, because it's free as long as you have the markers. And if they're 5 damage, then they have to guard all of that, and especially now with trigger effects going off if you check any. So this is very lethal at 5 damage, and also very devastating if they don't check any defensive triggers. You really want to aim for this final effect as early as possible, so that means you should make markers as early as possible and as much as possible. But what are the rear guards that can work with Nightmist? So let's go on to the other crew of the 7 Seas, which is, starting from grade 0, 7 Seas Apprentice Nightrunner. And he is the previous starting Vanguard for 7 Seas back in the old days, a grade 0 with 10k shield and a 5k body. It has 2 skill, and as I said, the first skill is the same as any other 7 Seas units, which is auto on VNR. When it hits something, choose one of your circles without any treasure marker and put a treasure marker. One of the only ways for you to generate marker, the same for every other 7 Seas units. And it has the second ability, which is act on rearguard circle, cause you can bind this unit and put 2 cards from the top of your deck into your drop zone to return a card with 7 Seas in its card name not named Nightrunner from your drop zone to your hand. So essentially, it can fetch you any 7 Seas you want from your drop zone as long as it's not itself. So it's sort of a copy of all your 7 Seas you play in your deck as long as they are in the drop zone. So he is very nice to have, and especially if you play multiples of these in your main deck, so not just as you're starting Vanguard, or even if you play that or not, you can go through your deck to set up your drop zone to ensure that you have targets to fetch with Nightrunner. You can dig to your deck for your Nightmist, so you can get that to your hand. So it has a very nice flexible ability to just get any piece you want, and you will notice later on that this deck is much more piece reliant compared to the conventional Cocytus deck. Now, moving on to the grade 1, we have 7 Seas Helmsman Nightcrow. This boy, the old version, is still limited in premium format. I do not know why, but here in standard he returns with 2 skills. The first skill is the on-hit marker, and the second skill is act on drop zone. If you have a Vanguard with 7 Seas in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire a rearguard not named Nightcrow to call this card to your rearguard circle. Now this is reminiscent to the previous version, the G era version, where it doesn't need a Soul Blast, but now you do. So just immediately I want to point out that currently you cannot make a deck full of 7 Seas. But if you remember from Nightmist, you want to have as many 7 Seas units in your field as possible because they can attack from the back row, intercept from the back row, gain power, and restand. So he is very useful to replace any non-7 Seas card you have in your field, because you just need to pay a Soul Blast and then you exchange the card from your drop zone to your rear guard. So he's a very good card to have just to make sure that your field is consistently filled with just 7 Seas units. Now, the other great one is a bit different. He is Witch Doctor of the 7 Seas Raistutor. Grade 1 with 8k body and 10k shield. It has 2 skills. The first skill is the on-hit marker. And the second skill is continuous on rearguard circle. If there is a marker on this unit circle, this unit gets intercept. Now, this is one of the units that interacts with the treasure marker, because treasure marker counts as a marker. So if it's under a treasure marker, then that means this card can intercept. And if you remember from Nightmist, if you have one or more treasure marker, then you can intercept from the back row. So he is in a nice spot as well in the back row, because not only it can boost if you want to do that, but it can also intercept. So it's very nice in the early game to know that you can put this early as a booster. And then once you get to Nightmist, you don't lose shield value because it can still go to the Guardian Circle in that way. Another interesting point is that if you play Protect 2, because Protect 2 is considered as a marker, you can also get the intercept ability that way if he is under it. So if you put him under a Protect 2 marker, then he suddenly becomes a 20k shield on your field. So that is an interesting interaction that you can have if there is no treasure marker, but you can also have Protect 2 synergy. Now, going on to the grade 2, we have 7 Seas Pillager Nightspinel. 2 skills. The first on-hit skill is the same, and the second skill is auto on Vanguard and rearguard circle. When placed, you can pay the cost of 1 counterblast and mill the top 2 cards from your deck, and call up to 1 card with 7 Seas in its card name not named Pillager Nightspinel from your drop zone to the rearguard circle. So this is so far the only way for 7 Seas to gain card advantage, which is by reviving something from the drop zone. This is the only card we see so far, and she is then very important, because then she is the only way for now to make sure that you can have a full field easily and not calling cards from your hand and from the drop zone instead. And some targets to keep in mind aside from 7 Seas units, you can think about having to revive Nightrunner, because Nightrunner, if you remember, you can bind himself and mill 2 cards from your deck to fetch a 7 Seas unit from your drop zone. And because you can revive Nightspinel, you can work around this by reviving Nightrunner, and Nightrunner replaces itself with Nightspinel, and you can call the Nightspinel to again use her skill to call something else from your drop zone, so you can fill your field much easily. Also, one of the uses for Nightrunner in this way, which is very efficient. So a very important piece for the deck. Now the second important piece is the grade 2, which is 7 Seas Master Swordsman / Shade. 2 skill, same on hit ability as the first skill, and the second skill is continuous on rearguard circle. During your turn, if there is a marker on this unit circle, this unit gets power plus 15k. So if it's under a treasure marker, it will be a 24k attacker. And you can have this live early if you manage to hit something on your grade 1. If you go second, you can put a marker on wherever you want this unit to be in, and then it gets the power and your opponent has to guard very high early game. And it has more interactions, of course, with the grade 3, because if you remember Nightmist, if you have 1 or more, you can attack from the back row. So this is nice, because then you have a well protected beater if they have no control options. But if you have 3 or more cards, treasure marker in your field, then it gets another 5k, makes him a 29k beater, which means that they would need at least 20k shield to guard. So very powerful card, and this is in a way for 7 Seas to continue to keep hitting above defensive triggers, because at 13k, if they hit 1 defensive, then it's all over. But at 29k, you need at least 2 defensives to make sure that it cannot attack anymore. And also similar to Raistutor, because it only says a marker, if he is under a Protect 2, then it will get an additional 5k and 5k from Nightmist and 15k from its own effect, making him a 34k beater, which is very high, and you can go higher by stacking crits, by stacking triggers or stacking protect markers, and also has an increased shield as well. So he is very important for hitting high numbers. And those were all the cards revealed. So how can you form a deck out of it from the ones we got to know so far? So this is what I've been coming up with and been testing for a while, and let's go over them together. So first of all, you see that I play all 7 Seas cards at 4. Nightmist at 4, Slash Shade, Nightspinel, all that stuff aside from the Nightrunner. And immediately you see that I play Captain Nightkit as my on-ride draw and quick shield starter, because I think that it gives a lot of value, obviously, to just draw just by riding. But also you actually want Nightrunner to be a sort of an extra card part of your deck, because if you remember the interaction with Nightspinel, you can revive him, and if you have a Nightspinel from your drop zone, you can take the Nightspinel again with the Nightrunner skill so that you can revive something else. Also helps you dig through your deck, set up your drop zone as targets for Nightspinel, for Nightrunner, for also making sure the Nightcrow is in your drop zone, and you can fetch your Nightmist early if you just keep going through your deck by mailing cards from your deck. So this is for the 7 Seas, but for the non-7 Seas, I play one thing is 3 Nightmist, and Nightmist is very useful because it can revive Nightspinel if you have 10 cards in your drop, or to sort of play around that, you can revive a Nightrunner and then have that interaction Nightrunner, Nightspinel revive something else. So we really need more ways to get card advantage, because Nightspinel is not enough. So Nightmist can help you with making sure that you have a full field at all times, especially against control options. Now the other non-7 Seas is Cutlass, and Cutlass is very nice because he can give you card advantage out of nowhere as long as you have 2 Cutlasses in your drop zone. And it also gives you counter charge. Sure, this deck doesn't use a lot, only Nightmist and Nightspinel, but it can be useful against deck that has a lot of crits every time, like Asha, MLB, or Dimension Police. So he is really good to have so that you don't get damage deny, and also he can be replaced easily with Nightcrow because you can retire him and Soul Blast 1 to call a Nightcrow from your drop zone by replacing the Cutlass. So this makes sure that you can fill all your non-7 Seas circles without really paying anything aside from a Soul Blast and a bind of another Cutlass. And the other non-7 Seas I play is Norman the Ghosty. This is one of the cards that I feel that will be replaced, because I do believe that we will get new cards that can also interact with both Nightcrows and the 7 Seas archetype by either, for example, getting card advantage, or hopefully what I would love the most is selective milling, because we don't have that in standard right now. But he is very useful because he can give power to your field. So in the early game, you can make sure that your opponent needs to guard for a lot more, or you would get treasure markers. So making those treasure markers is very important, as I said before. But also it sets up your drop zone for Nightcrow, Nightmist, Nightspinel, Nightrunner, all those good stuff. You don't need to mill a lot as long as you have all the right pieces. And also what's interesting is in this deck I play 8 draws and 4 crits and 4 draw PGs. That's different from Cocytus, because Cocytus usually wants to run like 12 crits or 10 crits, because you really make a lot of pressure with your Vanguard on inherent crit and Skull Dragons. But now, because you are more reliant to your pieces like Nightspinel and Nightmist to refill your drop zone, your field from your drop zone, you really want to draw to as many of them as much as possible and as early as possible to ensure that you have a full field ready at all times, because this deck, as I said before, can make 11 attacks, 5 rearguard attacks, 1 Vanguard, and 5 more rearguard attacks when you have a full field of treasure markers. So you want to make sure that you have all of the circles filled with 7 Seas as much as possible and as early as possible. And as I said before, the treasure markers give a very nice strategy in which all your attacks of 7 Seas will be beneficial for your strategy as a whole. First, it gives you markers. Of course, you want to aim for that as much as possible. But also, it makes your opponent losing guard value very early. And they will, if they are reckless, for example, calling a grade 1 because they want to aggro you to the front row, then you can just attack that grade 1 with your own grade 1. Because for them, it might not be that the pieces, it's not one of their key pieces, but for you, it's one marker generator. So they have to think twice about aggroing you, because every unit they put will be value for you to attack. Otherwise, they have to lose cards from their hand, which is also a win for you. And this 7C strategy is also different from the typical Cocytus build we have, which wants to make a lot of cards in your drop zone as much as possible, to 20 or more at least. But now you just need to have the right pieces like Nightspinel or Cutlass, your Nightcrow, your Nightrunner. As long as you have all those key pieces in your drop zone, you don't need to mill as much. So you are a bit more easier. You have an easier matchup against Protect clans, because usually they can stall you out, but now you not only need to mill less, but also you can multi-attack a lot more, which is very interesting. And with multi-attacking, you have synergy with Protect 2, because if you remember Raistutor and Slash Shade, which gains power by just having markers, and it works with Protect 2, then you really have more benefits into going Protect 2 most of the time, because you can generate those power to make sure that your opponent have to guard with a lot more cards, or they would have to give you treasure markers, and also helps you go over those defensive triggers, especially if you place them on your high power beaters. So this deck in a way is, as I said, it's more of a budget deck, because it's just consists of triple Rs. You really are reliant on very key pieces, and it's really you are really having a tough matchup against control clans, against Mass Retire, because you really the only ways for you to revive things or make advantage is by Nightmist and Nightspinel. And if you don't have them, then you really have to just call cards from your hand to make sure that you have a full field, and especially very important to have a full field of 7 Seas. Another disadvantage with this deck, one of their weaknesses, is that defensive checks really hurts your whole attack, because you have 11 attacks, but if they check one defensive trigger, then at least like 4 or even 8 of your attacks, if you take into account the restand, will not hit anymore, because your opponent is already above your attacking threshold, aside maybe from Slash Shade or from some units above a Protect marker. You have to start using your boosters again. So really getting them to 5 damage as early as possible is good and should be condoned. But also if they are at high damage and they just check one defensive trigger, then you really have a hard time against that. So you really have to play around having Slash Shades to compensate for that. And hopefully with new cards reveal, we can use other cards that can work better with this deck, because I am confident that we will be renewed with some new support, and not everything will go only to Nitros and not to 7 Seas. Well, that was the deck profile and sort of card reveal and introduction to the treasure mechanic and 7 Seas. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, please leave out a like and let us know in the comment section below if you want to hear more deck profiles on something else. I am personally an expert for Granblue, but also I play mainly Link Joker, Dimension Police, and Aqua Force, so I can of course share with you guys what my thoughts on those clans. And for Spike Brothers, we have Heart, as you already know, but we also have members that are experts in other clans. We basically mainly have almost all of the clans covered. If you really want to hear more about that, please let us know. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook as well. Join our Facebook group, and we also have a Discord link in the description below, so you can interact with us and be more updated on any incoming videos. Also interact with us, of course. And that is it from me. See you next time. Bye bye.